All right, so get this. We're diving deep today on a supplement that's claiming to do what regular magnesium just can't.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, supposedly it supercharges your brain.
Interesting.
We're talking Magnesium L-Threonate AGT for short.
Okay.
I was going through all the research you sent over. There's tons of it, and it's everything from like cell studies to trials with people dealing with Alzheimer's, even Parkinson's, even pain management.
Wow, that's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. So
Yeah.
where do we even begin?
Well, I think the best place to start is really understanding why magnesium matters so much for your brain. Because it's involved in just hundreds of processes, especially when it comes to memory learning, even keeping your moods stable.
So are you saying like if I'm low on magnesium, my brain's basically sputtering?
Pretty much. Yeah, you could say that.
Huh.
And this is where MGT gets really interesting because most magnesium supplements, they struggle to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Which is...
That's like that security system guarding your brain.
Okay.
But MGT is designed specifically to get through,
So it can...
potentially delivering a real boost to your brain.
Okay. So that's the theory at least.
Right.
But does it actually work? Like, what's the evidence say?
Well, there's this one study that really caught my eye. It was done on healthy Chinese adults.
Okay.
They gave some people MGT and some a placebo, and then had them do a standard cognitive test.
Like a memory test.
Yeah, with 5 different subcategories.
5. So like memory,
I guess
focus, all that.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And the group taking the MGT, they showed improvement in all 5 areas.
Really? Wow. Across the board. That's impressive.
It is. And get this, the older participants, those aged 50 to 65,
Okay.
they actually saw bigger improvements than the younger folks.
Wow. So this could actually help as we age.
It's possible,
Sign me up.
right?
But what about beyond memory? You mentioned some other pretty big claims, like what else?
Well, let's talk about sleep for a second.
Okay.
Imagine struggling to get a good night's rest, tossing and turning all night. A study found that MGT not only improved overall sleep quality, but it specifically increased those deep sleep and REM stages.
Oh, the ones that actually make you feel rested.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sold already. Better sleep, sharper brain. Are we seeing a theme here?
Maybe.
But what about those serious conditions like Alzheimer's? Is there any hope there?
Well, this is where the research gets really fascinating.
Okay.
In a mouse model of Alzheimer's, MGT was shown to prevent and even reverse cognitive decline and the loss of synapses.
Wait, reverse it. Like not just slow it down.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But actually like turn things around.
It's still early days, but the findings are definitely promising. And it's not just Alzheimer's either. There was another study on a mouse model of Parkinson's, and it showed that MGT reduced motor issues, those movement difficulties, and it even protected dopamine neurons.
Which are the ones that...
The cells that are attacked by Parkinson's.
Yeah, this is blowing my mind. So MGT for sleep memory, maybe even fighting these neurodegenerative diseases. What else is it being studied for? You mentioned pain, right?
Exactly. Multiple studies found that MGT reduced pain in various conditions, including nerve pain and pain from bladder inflammation. And get this, in advanced cancer patients, it actually made opioids more effective, meaning they needed lower doses for the same pain relief.
So it's not just masking the pain, it's potentially changing how we manage it.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
Are there any downsides and any side effects?
Well, before we get too ahead of ourselves, we do have to remember that the research is ongoing.
Right.
But early studies are also suggesting potential benefits for stress and anxiety.
Really?
For both.
Particularly in certain animal models.
Okay, so we've got sleep memory pain, maybe even stress. But hold on, we need to talk safety and how well this stuff actually gets absorbed into the brain.
Excellent point. Safety first.
Always.
A recent study by the European Food Safety Authority confirmed the safety of MGT as a novel food supplement.
Okay, good to know.
And research shows that MGT effectively raises magnesium levels in the cerebrospinal fluid.
The fluid that bathes your brain and spinal cord.
Okay.
That's key for all those brain benefits we've been talking about.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing I'm curious about. You mentioned gut health earlier. What's the connection there? Okay, so gut health and the brain. That sounds like a whole other deep dive.
It is. It's called the microbiota gut-brain axis.
The what?
The microbiota gut-brain axis. Basically, the trillions of bacteria in your gut microbiota, they can actually talk to your brain.
Oh, my gut bacteria are having a chat with my brain.
Through a complex network of signals.
That's wild. How does MGT fit into this?
Well, a study found that MGT might actually shift the balance of bacteria in your gut towards a healthier state. And a healthy gut is being linked more and more to better brain function, mood regulation, even a lower risk of those neurodegenerative diseases we talked about.
So MGT, better gut, better brain. I'm liking this more and more.
It really highlights how interconnected our bodies are. But let's shift gears for a second. There's this study where researchers were looking at MGT's effects on learning and memory in mice that had been exposed to lead.
Lead poisoning. That sounds pretty serious.
It is. Lead can really mess with brain development. But here's the thing. While lead definitely impaired the mice's learning and memory, both vitamin C and MGT seem to offer some protection.
So even with a neurotoxin like lead, MGT might still help.
It's possible. The research suggests that.
That's encouraging. But it's not just about damage control, right? We've been talking about MGT actually boosting brain power in healthy people.
Absolutely. There's a study that looked at MGT's impact on neural stem cell growth in the hippocampus of mice.
Which are the cells that can become new brain cells.
Right, exactly.
New brain cells even as we age. Sign me up.
Well, the study found that MGT enhanced the growth of these neural stem cells in both young and old mice.
Wow, so not just preserving what we have, but actually growing new brain cells.
This suggests that MGT might promote neurogenesis,
Which is?
the creation of new brain cells.
That's like hitting the refresh button on your brain.
The implications are huge. If we can support neurogenesis, we might be able to delay or even reverse age-related cognitive decline and maintain brain plasticity throughout life.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. But what about real-world applications? You mentioned MGT being studied for a wide range of conditions.
Right.
What about something like XMN disease?
Right. XMN disease is a rare genetic disorder that affects the immune system.
Yep.
Researchers thought that magnesium might help address some of the immunological issues.
Interesting.
They even did a double-blind, placebo-controlled study with oral MGT.
So did it work?
Unfortunately, in this case, they didn't see significant improvement in immune function.
So it's not a miracle cure for everything.
Right. It's not a cure-all. But it does seem to have potential for a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's true.
We've got to be realistic, though. The research is ongoing, and there's still a lot to learn about MGT. But the studies we've talked about so far, they paint a pretty compelling picture.
You know, one thing that keeps coming up is inflammation. It seems like it plays a role in a lot of these conditions, and MGT seems to have anti-inflammatory effects.
You're spot on. Inflammation is a key factor in so many neurological disorders, from chronic pain to Alzheimer's. And several studies are showing that MGT can reduce neuroinflammation.
So it's like,
basically calming the storm in your brain.
I remember that study on rats with nerve pain where MGT actually prevented and reversed memory problems linked to that condition.
Exactly. And they found that MGT was likely working by blocking a major inflammatory molecule called TNF-alpha.
TNF-alpha.
Like MGT is putting out the fire of inflammation, allowing the brain to function better.
I also found this study where they combined MGT with atorvastatin.
Atorvastatin.
Yeah, that's a common cholesterol medication in rats with Alzheimer's.
Interesting combination. What happened?
The combo was even better at protecting against Alzheimer's compared to atorvastatin alone.
So MGT might work even better when combined with other therapies.
It's possible.
That opens up a lot of possibilities.
There's another study I found intriguing. It involved mice with a condition called NMOSD.
NMOSD.
Which affects the spinal cord and optic nerves. Turns out these mice had significantly lower magnesium levels in their cerebrospinal fluid.
That's a big clue suggesting magnesium deficiency might be part of the problem.
Right. And when they gave those mice MGT, it actually helped alleviate many of the negative effects of NMOSD, inflammation, nerve cell loss, even neurological deficits.
It really reinforces how important magnesium is for a healthy nervous system.
Yeah.
And it suggests that MGT might have therapeutic potential for even more neurological conditions than we've talked about so far.
It's amazing how much research has been done on MGT already.
It shows how much interest there is in this supplement. People are really starting to recognize its potential.
You know, it makes you wonder if MGT can have such a positive impact on so many different things. What does it tell us about magnesium overall? Like, how crucial is it for our well-being?
That's the million-dollar question. We're just starting to understand the full scope of magnesium's influence, but it's clearly a vital player in keeping us healthy and functioning at our best.
And speaking of functioning at our best, there's a study that looked at how MGT affected sleep quality and daytime functioning in adults who reported having sleep problems.
Sleep. We all need it, but so many of us struggle with it. What did they find?
The participants who took MGT not only slept better, but they also felt more energized and alert during the day. They even reported better mood and mental clarity.
That makes sense. Magnesium is involved in regulating neurotransmitters that control sleep and wakefulness. And since MGT can boost magnesium levels in the brain, it's not surprising to see these positive results.
It's like a chain reaction. Better sleep leads to better mood, better focus, and ultimately a better quality of life. And it makes you think about how our modern lifestyles are constantly depleting our magnesium stores, stress processed foods, lack of sleep.
You're right. It's a perfect storm for magnesium deficiency. That's why it's so important to be mindful of our intake and consider supplementation if we need it.
I'm fascinated by this study that looked at how MGT affected rats with cystitis.
Cystitis.
Which is inflammation of the bladder.
Interesting. It goes beyond the typical brain-focused research and looks at the link between magnesium and pain in other parts of the body. What did they find?
MGT reduced pain sensitivity in the rats with cystitis. It also decreased depressive-like behaviors and even improved their short-term memory.
That's a great example of how MGT's benefits extend beyond just the brain. It has the potential to modulate inflammation throughout the body, which can have a huge impact on our overall well-being.
And it's not just about fixing existing problems.
Yeah.
One study found that when rats were given MGT in their diet over a long period, they actually learned faster and remembered things longer.
Wow, so it's not just fixing deficits, it's actually enhancing capabilities.
It really makes you think about that study on neural stem cell growth. MGT seems to support brain plasticity on multiple levels, from growing new cells to strengthening existing connections.
That's a really exciting area for future research. If we can figure out exactly how MGT boosts brain plasticity, it could completely change how we approach maintaining cognitive function throughout our lives.
We've covered so much ground on the potential benefits of MGT. But before we get too carried away, are there any things we should be cautious about?
I always say approach any supplement with a healthy dose of skepticism. Talk to your doctor before starting anything new.
Right. MGT is a supplement, not a magic cure-all.
Exactly. It's not a replacement for proper medical care.
But based on everything we've discussed, it does seem like it has the potential to be a powerful tool for supporting brain health and cognitive function.
I think the evidence is pretty compelling. I'm excited to see what future research reveals about MGT and how it might change our approach to brain health.
I'm particularly fascinated by the research on MGT's connection to the microbiota gut-brain axis. It's incredible to think that by taking care of our gut bacteria, we might be able to improve our brain health as well.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of our bodies and how a holistic approach to health is so important.
And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today.
It's been a pleasure exploring the fascinating world of MGT with you.
Before we go, I have one final question for our listener to ponder. If MGT can impact so many different aspects of health, what does this tell us about the interconnectedness of our bodies and the importance of magnesium for overall well-being?
It's a question worth pondering indeed. It seems like we're just scratching the surface of what we know about magnesium and its potential to optimize our health.
Absolutely. And there's a whole universe of research yet to be explored.
Yeah.
Speaking of exploring, I found this study on MGT, and I think it really shows its potential. They were looking at fear memory and generalization in rats, like how we learn to be afraid of things and how sometimes those fears can get kind of out of control.
Yeah, fear is a powerful thing for sure. So what'd they find with MGT?
Well, they found that MGT helped the rats distinguish between situations that were actually dangerous and ones that just seemed similar but were safe.
Oh, interesting.
Like it helped them fine-tune their fear response.
It's fascinating. Makes you think about folks with anxiety disorders or PTSD where fear responses can be, overgeneralized.
Yeah.
Could MGT help with that?
That's exactly what the researchers are suggesting. It's like MGT is helping the brain be more precise about what to be afraid of.
Yeah.
But one more study really stood out to me because it highlighted something we touched on earlier. Not all magnesium is created equal.
Right. We were talking about how MGT seems to be better at crossing that blood-brain barrier.
Exactly. This study compared different types of magnesium supplements in rats, looking at both memory and depression-related behaviors.
Okay, smart. Looking at the whole picture. Because cognitive issues and mood problems, they often go together.
And guess what? MGT came out on top. It was the most effective at boosting memory and reducing those depressive symptoms.
It all comes back to that bioavailability. MGT just seems to get the magnesium where it needs to be in the brain.
So we've covered so much ground today, from the basic science to some really cutting-edge research. What's the big takeaway for our listeners?
Well, I think the evidence is pretty compelling that MGT has a lot of potential. It's not a magic bullet, but it's something worth looking into, maybe even talking to your doctor about.
And it really makes you think, if something like MGT can have so many potential benefits, What does that tell us about how important magnesium is for our overall health?
It seems like we're just scratching the surface of what we know about magnesium and its potential to really optimize our health.
That's a great thought to leave our listeners with. Keep exploring, keep learning, and never underestimate the power of something as small as a mineral to make a big difference in your life.